Welcome to the Hire Yourself podcast. My name is Pete Gilfill, and I'm here with my business partner, Nat Truitt. We're all about helping people become entrepreneurs and making them a little better business people. Welcome, Nat.
Hey, Pete, how are you doing today?
I am doing awesome. I'm hoping that the weather is going to finally get better. The last couple nights we've had frost warnings, if you can believe it or not. It's crazy. It just won't warm up yet.
Yeah, spring in Chicago, right?
Spring in Chicago. You got that right. So Nat, I was just reading one of my favorite books, rereading it. I think I've probably even given you a copy of this book, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy.
Oh yeah, I love that book.
Oh yeah, I think I've given out like 500 copies of it. And I was reading through it, and he tells the story about when he decided that he wanted to find a person to settle down with, right? The right partner. And he talked about how he spent hours filled up a whole notebook of everything that he was looking for in a future spouse, a future partner. And then he filled up another notebook of everything that he had to become to be the person or to attract the person that he was looking for. I think that's a great story.
Yeah, it's definitely in life. It's all about a give and take, right? Deposits and withdrawals, and you have to figure out who you need to be to attract the right person or the right business opportunity.
Yeah, so I thought we'd translate that into an investigating or looking at a franchise business.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, right. So here's my theory, right? You and I, we spend a lot of time during our podcast and a lot of our content talking about this idea of somebody looking for the right franchise, right? The lens of the person that's going to invest in the franchise. So the person that's looking for a business partner. But what I want to do today is I want to flip it. So now I want to talk about that, hey, a partnership takes two, right? And so I want to kind of take it from the approach of what is a franchisor looking for? Because this is a two-way street, or simply put, what do you have to become to be a franchisee? That make sense?
That's perfect. I think that people need to understand. I know I've had, a handful of candidates in the past that have, actually got rejected by the franchisor. So I think it's really important to kind of understand that it's a two-way street.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people, when they have to invest in a franchise, they look at it as like they're purchasing the franchise, but really they're being awarded, right?
Yeah.
So they have to be approved or awarded the franchise, and clearly I learned that when I was with Ford, but certainly all franchises, you're awarded the opportunity to become a franchisee. So, as we talk about this idea of a franchisor looking at a candidate, it's so important that they pick the right franchisee, because a franchisee is the face of that brand, and they're building a brand, they're building a reputation out there. And you've probably seen it, right? Is that they want to find that right person, because if somebody has a bad experience at a franchise location, they may not go back to that specific franchise concept. Right, period. Whether I live in Iowa or in Minnesota, doesn't make any difference. If I've had a bad experience at a place, so it's so important they pick that right partner.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like that concept. You're only as strong as the weakest link, and when you think about a chain, right? And so it is, especially at the beginning, it's super important to have strong franchise owners, because that's the foundation that you're building everything on. And so, whether it's your first 10 or 30 or 100, because at the beginning, those guys and girls, they need to be successful, so that later on, when people are calling and doing their due diligence and validation, it's, you're creating something other people want to become a part of, right? So you can't afford to have a weak link in the system.
Yeah, right, because they're delivering that customer experience. So it's finding the people that have that passion to satisfy customers. It's also, I think, franchisors, do you see it where they're kind of looking for the right cultural fit, right? That, do you fit within the organization?
Totally. And I think the better franchise systems, or the best ones, are always kind of looking to top grade. So they're looking, for owners that are going to raise the level of play to the next level, and not just, be average or, drag the system down.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at like some franchises feel like they're a Fortune 1000 company, and some franchise systems feel like they're a family-run business, right? So
Mhm.
it is about which one do you kind of fit into from their standpoint, and I think that also ties to leadership styles, right? So do you see that with franchisors? They're looking for people that have leadership styles that are consistent with where their thoughts are.
Yeah, and I also think looking for people that can contribute to the system, right? So thought leadership, and especially as early on in a franchise system, you have the opportunity to be part of like the owner's mastermind or what have you, and the franchise is only it's as strong as the sum of its parts, right? So the franchise owners, that's it's an awesome opportunity to be able to contribute to the system and be part of it growing.
Yeah, you were, I think, with your franchise that you invested in, you were one of the earlier ones. I think in the top, what 100 or something like
Yeah, it
that.
was 118.
118. And were you part of groups? Did you kind of help bring ideas forward and things like that?
Yeah, you have like the owners groups, and they have the top performers. So not just anybody can be in those groups, but you have to be a top performer, and usually like the top 1 or 2%. It's always kind of competitive, and I know you and I have talked about that too in the past. Like it's kind of fun to have the competitions and see hey, who can have the most revenue or whatever you're measuring for that month, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're looking for somebody that kind of fits the cultural organization and can add value. Certainly, the franchisors are also want to make sure that you're financially qualified. You have the resources, because if you go into business and you don't have enough resources, that could be disastrous.
I always tell people as a rule of thumb, for better or for worse, I tell them it's going to take twice as long and cost twice as much to get the doors open or get up and running. So I mean, you definitely need to have a little bit of a cushion and definitely have a plan and build a pro forma, and treat this like you would your job or your business, and be professional about it.
Yeah, well, we never want to go into business undercapitalized. And I think
Right.
somebody once said, when you have the ability to get capital, get it, because when you need capital, you can't get it. So always
Yep.
take advantage of that stuff. So franchisors are looking for a certain type of person, and then they're also watching your activities as you're investigating the franchises, right? So they're kind of watching you to see from that standpoint what you're all about as you do your due diligence, right? So evaluating a franchise takes a lot of hard work, and the franchisors are going to give you assignments. They're going to actually give you things to do in between calls. Do you kind of see that that's a pretty important thing for people to be honest and to do the work that they're supposed to do as they evaluate the franchises?
Well, and for sure. And one thing I don't know if people don't realize in this day and age, but with technology, I was talking to a franchise developer just the other day about one of my candidates, and they were like, "Well, they haven't opened this email, they haven't read they haven't watched this video." Like, I don't know if candidates realize that with technology so sophisticated that it actually lets the developers know at the franchise side if they've opened emails, if they watched the videos and things like that. So when it's kind of like they're kind of watching to see who's engaging with the content. And if somebody's not engaging basically with any of the content, they're automatically going to kind of have a lower priority status at the franchise level. Guys that are getting the emails, opening the emails, watching the video, doing the questionnaires, like the technology basically is a feedback loop for the franchisors. So they're going to know that you're doing your homework, and then you're going to bubble to the top of the pile, which I think that's where, from my perspective, that's where we're trying to get our candidates. We're, number one, we're trying to get them to the front of the line. And then number two, we're trying to keep them there.
Yeah. And the franchisors take them through a process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't follow the process of evaluating the franchise, how the heck are you going to follow the processes when you're a franchisee, right? And
Yeah,
I
it's
think that's what
totally
they're looking
true.
for. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even funny anymore. But like the one thing that I see early on, like we're like, oh, these 3 franchises, and then the next thing the guy's out like driving looking for real estate, And it's like, well, time out, it's like, you don't need to be spending hours and hours and hours looking for the, perfect location if you haven't done the 100 steps that precede that, So it's just like one step at a time in the right sequence will actually get you there, get you the ultimate outcome quicker and more efficiently.
Yeah, and we always kind of talk about, to be a good franchisee, you need to be able to follow a system. Now, that doesn't mean you can't make it better, but at a minimum, you got to be able to follow the system. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing as applies to as we investigate franchises, we follow the system because it's designed to ensure that you're getting the information, but more importantly, it's demonstrating that you have those capabilities, that the ability to do it. Now, the other thing is that I always kind of tell people when we are investigating franchises, these are like first dates, job interviews, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes people don't realize that, right? They show up late, right? So they show up
Right.
30 minutes late for a call, or they cancel a call 5 minutes before it starts. So the franchise development person loses a half an hour or hour of productivity. Do you see that with candidates?
Yeah, and I think, just like everything this day and age seems like everybody's like so busy and back to back. I mean, these developers are at minimum probably on 8 to 16 back to back phone calls, in an 8 to 10 hour day. So to basically no call, no show, or to reschedule last minute, it's really wasting their time and disrespecting their time. I like that do unto others as you'd have them do to you. Like if you carved out your time to meet with somebody, you wouldn't want them to cancel on you. So I think it's the other thing I see is people show up to these calls in a distracted state. So, they might be it's like they're coming from the gym or they're coming from Panera, and then they're hopping on these franchise calls, and they just look really bad to the franchise developer because they're not prioritizing the call. They're treating it super casual, like they're talking, to their kid or their friend or something. I would suggest always to be at your desktop, have your computer open, and be on task, just like you would, with an important conference call for work.
Or job interview, right? I mean, I think
Exactly.
it's being
Exactly.
present, and
Yeah.
so not any different if you're on a date, right? You're trying to meet a partner. Now, this case, you're interviewing a business partner,
Right.
and they're interviewing you. So yeah, and I, emergencies happen, but bottom line is that if we say we're going to be there, we're there, we're on time, all that kind of stuff.
It's ultimately not that much time to dedicate to this process when you think about it. I mean, I think it's 5 to 10 hours per week, probably for, maybe 6 to 8 weeks. I don't know. What do you think as far as the time
Yeah,
dedication?
I think it takes more time up front, and as you
Yeah.
narrow your focus down your funnel, it's less. It kind of depends on how many franchise concepts, but it takes effort and time. And in the idea is that if you commit to something, if you commit to watching a video, you commit to be on a call, that's your reputation. You mean,
Mhm.
and so that's who you're representing yourself to the franchisor. And so I think the key is that we're professional, and that is, even now you see this with Zoom, is that people will show up to a Zoom meeting in a t-shirt or
Right.
a baseball hat, right? And you're not really conveying this image of a business owner, in my
Right.
opinion.
Right. Yeah, I think it's, this day and age, we have to kind of raise our game to the next level to stand out. And I think it's important, that our candidates or prospective franchise owners realize that, go through the process in a professional manner. If you reach the point where you're not interested, just man up, put on your big boy pants, and let the brand know that, hey, I'm not interested, or I'll revisit this in 90 days. I think it's always best to over communicate and be as honest as possible.
So let's talk a little bit about, so when you evaluate franchises, you go through the franchise investigation procedures, the 4 core steps.
Mhm.
And the idea behind it is the 4th step is what we call discovery day, meet the team day, confirmation day. Everybody has a little different name, but it's really about the relationships, right?
Mhm.
And so as I've got candidates that attend discovery days, I prepare them for that, right? This idea that they need to go to that discovery day and they need to be engaged, right? So I think one of the fastest ways to get uninvited to become a franchisee is go to a discovery day, sit in the back room, don't participate, because the franchisor doesn't get to know you.
Right. Yeah, I like to try to even get my candidates pole position, like see if we can get them to get a lunch or breakfast with the founder before discovery day. There's just some different tips and tricks to show that you're really engaged and asking thoughtful questions. I know you have some thoughtful questions you kind of like to tee up for some of our candidates.
Yeah, well, I always tell them that when you're going to attend a discovery day, sit down, write down your questions. Now, they can't be questions you already know the answers to. You should have a certain level of understanding of the business model. So you don't say, well, do you guys help with marketing? You should already know how they help with marketing. Now,
Yeah.
you may take that and build onto it or add on to get a better clarity or understanding. But the idea is we want to be prepared with questions from that standpoint. And one of the things that I tell people is when they go to a discovery day is they got to be prepared, because they may be asked, why do you want to become a blank franchisee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you want to become a franchisee? And you'll hear somebody that hasn't prepared. The first thing they'll say is, well, I want to make gobs of money. Right. And it has to be more than that. The franchisor is looking for it's of substance. Do you see that too?
Oh yeah, totally. And I some of my favorite brands over the years are ones that actually make their franchise applicants or potential owners actually write like a 1 or 2 page essay about why they want to become a XYZ franchise owner.
Yeah.
I think that's a good practice to go through.
Yeah, right. Because it's this idea that most people, they want to create opportunities for people to have employment or jobs. They want to provide a superior product or service in their community from that standpoint. I find it very interesting, from the standpoint of the investigation process, that some franchisors are so serious about finding the right person, they'll actually make you take a personality test.
Yeah. Well, I think that's always a good idea, actually, because it's better to figure out these things before you get in versus 1 or 2 years down the road, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that leads to kind of one of the last things is, you got to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
As you're presenting yourself, you got to be honest about your past. We don't fluff up our experience or our resume, right?
Right.
We're honest about the present, kind of where we're at, what we're looking for, and then most importantly, where do we want to go? Where do we want to be in the future? And I think sometimes people aren't very transparent. And if you're looking for the right partner, they need to know where you've been, where you are currently, and where you want to go.
Yeah. As you're saying that, 2 other things are coming to my mind is another one, to be honest with your financials, right? And then also to be decisive. Most franchise companies they're really going to appreciate, or they're going to acknowledge decisive owners. So somebody that, can go through the process and make a decision, whether it's thumbs up or thumbs down, because owning your own business is just, you're going to be making decisions on a daily basis. And some of them are going to be really big, and you need to be able to make those decisions and basically live or die by them.
Yeah, right. So if you can't make the key decisions like I'm going to attend Discovery Day or I'm going to invest in the franchise, how are you going to make decisions when you got to decide, hey, do I put more capital in the business? Do I hire this person? I think that's a great point, Nat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun process. And, I think we've talked in the past about, you're also having the ability to plug into this group of franchise owners. And if the franchisor has done a good job, they're all going to kind of be like A players, maybe a couple A-, but ideally, everyone's going to be kind of pulling their game up and pulling in the same direction. It's kind of like being on a team.
It's very interesting you say that, right? So what I don't think a lot of people know is that, like, if you were doing a validation call with a franchisee within the franchise system, sometimes those franchisees will provide feedback to the franchisor on what their thoughts of the candidate that called them, right?
Exactly.
Right.
I think that's much more common than we forget to even think of, bring that up. But yeah, they'll back channel to the parent company, hey, what'd you think about Pete when you talked to him?
Yeah, right.
Oh, he asked good questions. He was on time, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very important. So, again, I think it goes back to, you have to know what you're looking for, but you also have to know what you have to be desirable for these franchisors.
Totally. And if you just want to do your own thing and hang out, then I'm sure there's a business somewhere, for that too. It might not be a franchise.
Yeah, right. Very good. All right. Well, great discussion today. And again, I think we always have to make sure we understand that not only are we evaluating the business opportunity, but they're also evaluating us as a potential partner.
Thanks for listening to the Hire Yourself podcast. For more resources, check out our website at hireyourself.com. And remember to subscribe to this podcast to receive each episode. Please leave us a rating, and we'd love to hear your feedback or suggestions for topics.